Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks. Every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
Welcome in. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Thanks for tuning in here today on a Tuesday. Having a chance now to lead off the show, a very, very rare thing on Wisconsin Sports Daily. Lead off a show with an interview, but we're going to do just that today with Ryan Wood, Packers beat writer for the Green Bay Press-Gazette. He joins us now on the guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Follow Ryan on X at @Ryan Wood. Ryan, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Always good to talk with you, Sparky. How we doing?
Doing good, man. You've put in a lot of work to grading out all of these positions on film, and you still have a couple more position groups to go going forward here, including Rich Bisaccia's special teams. But of all the work that you've done so far, because now you're really going back into the nitty-gritty of watching the film and really getting specific on it, which obviously you don't have the time to do during the season. What's been the biggest surprise, maybe of a player or a group, that watching it with the naked eye, it didn't appear to be that way versus when you went back and watched the film?
I don't think I realized just how bad the offensive line was all season. And I know if you were to say, okay, the offensive line was not good in 2025, we all knew that. So that's not a surprise. Sparky, it was a train wreck. And what's shocking about it is that it wasn't supposed to be. The Packers entered 2025 fully believing that they had beefed up their offensive line, that this was a unit that was going to be even better than an offensive line that wasn't great in 2024, but was certainly good enough to have a power run game, one of the finest running back seasons in Packers history with Josh Jacobs. And from start to finish, the things that they were bad at are things that just professional offensive lines should not be bad at. Transition blocks to the second level, communication in pass pro. It was bad throughout. And the problem with that is, one, you do have Josh Jacobs still, right? And he is the engine to your offense. They were 15th in rush offense last year. I don't think it's a coincidence that they were mediocre there and had a mediocre season. I think those two things are very closely attached. But even more, when you look at who they have behind center, you have a quarterback who is as good as it gets in the NFL with a clean pocket, and a quarterback that, because of all those pass pro issues, was constantly under pressure. 140 throws under pressure for Jordan Love last season, his most in his 3 years since replacing Aaron Rodgers. You keep his jersey clean, he's going to win you an MVP. He had a 122 passer rating, 26 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, throwing from a clean pocket, completed 74% of his passes. But because he was constantly under pressure, that was a big mark on this offense. So it's got to be the offensive line. They have got to fix this. They have got to get people in the right spots. They have got to coach them up. It sure looks like Luke Buckus is going to stay employed as the offensive line coach. He's got to have a much better 2026 and 2025.
So explain this to me, if you would, because it appears Rasheed Walker will be headed out to go sign somewhere else, which then means obviously left tackle becomes a guy that you drafted and hasn't done all that much other than look bad at right guard. Then at left guard is your free agent from last year, obviously. Then your center is up in the air because I think a lot of people believe that Jenkins will be released. And the guy that replaced him, Sean Ryan, who was at right guard at one point, he now is a free agent, so he may also be gone at this point. You took Escalade, who you drafted, and thought he was going to be a tackle. You moved him into guard late in the season, so is that the answer at guard? And then Zach Thomas coming off of being hurt the entire season to play at right tackle. Do they go the avenue of signing a free agent center to try and really make sure everybody is in check? Or do they go the draft route? Me personally, I don't want a rookie center at that position with Jordan Love next year, because next year should be a season where you're talking about Super Bowl or bust.
Well, if you're a team that's trying to really be delicate when it comes to your cap situation, which I think profiles as the Packers this offseason, there are certain positions that you prefer not to spend big at in this game, and one of them is center. If you have a guy in Sean Ryan who was kind of a revelation because they've tried to boot Sean Ryan to the sidelines for years now and haven't been able to. And then they finally, midway through last season, they finally give the job at right guard to Jordan Morgan. And the next week, Elton Jenkins' season ends and Sean Ryan comes in. And first couple weeks, it was a bit of a journey. You're playing full-time center. There's a whole lot there that you don't have to deal with at guards, starting with obviously the snaps. Week 11 in New York, having the wind conditions, there were some wayward snaps there. But as the season progressed, he showed himself to be a very capable starting center in this league. He's a good power player. He blocks what's in front of him. He's always going to struggle in pass protection, but that's where you want a center because you're flanked by guards. You get a lot of help and support there. If he's not going to cost an arm and a leg on the open market, he's a high floor starting center. I think it starts there. What happened with the offensive line, Sparky, last season, it was a domino effect of basically everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Injuries were part of it. Not having Zach Tom healthy throughout the season, especially because he did play at a high level. He was by far their best offensive lineman. They were starting to find something in Denver. They were starting to look better early in that game. And then Zach Tom leaves and doesn't come back last season. That's a big deal. But also when you move Elton Jenkins to center, thinking he'll be better than Josh Myers, and he's actually worse than Josh Myers at center. Inexplicably, when I talk about transition blocks, Elton Jenkins' inability to get to the second level, get on backers, I did not see that coming because it was fine at left guard. It's just a different world. There's more transition. There's more need to get to the second level at center. And then Aaron Banks being a downgrade from Elton Jenkins at left guard then affects Rasheed Walker, who gave up more inside speed pressures last season than any of his years combined before that. It all trickulates out from that one decision to move Elton Jenkins. So put Sean Ryan, to re-sign him for not an expensive deal, have a high floor there, and build it inside out. Now, you talked about surprise. Jordan Morgan's tape's not as bad as I thought it would be. That was a bright spot. He's not a guard.
The tape at what position are you talking about? Are you talking about when he filled in at right tackle? Are you talking about right guard? Because he looked awful at guard to me.
When you get into the tape, he had 5 touchdown run blocks at right guard. He's not a guard. So I thought it was a cry for help that he was playing the right guard position. He was at least competent at right guard. He's not a plus player at that position, but I did understand when Brian Gutekunst says, okay, his versatility, he probably could have won the left tackle job out of camp, but he's versatile enough to play inside. He wasn't a massive liability inside. He's also not going to be a Pro Bowl guard because that's not what he is, but I thought it was much worse than when you actually look at the tape. I think that Jordan Morgan, you want to talk about Sean Ryan, the path he's taken. I think he could follow a very similar path where terrible rookie season for Sean Ryan, a non-factor, but he slowly gets better. He finds a spot. He looks better at that spot. Once you move Jordan Morgan to left tackle, I think they're going to be even better. He's a more athletic tackle on the blind side than Rasheed Walker. I think that goes a long way to fixing this offensive line as well.
So with Ryan Wood, Packers beat writer for the Green Bay Press-Gazette, leading off the show here on Wisconsin Sports Daily on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. There is some differing of opinions on Quay Walker, linebacker for the Packers, as he enters free agency. If you go look at Pro Football Focus, not graded very high. If you go look at ESPN's list of available free agents, I think he's in the top 15 or so in football as far as available free agents go. When you watched film, what did you see?
Well, I think Pro Football Focus is looking at coverage, Quay Walker, and ESPN is looking at run defense / Mike Blitzer, Quay Walker, because you have two very, very different players at the same position. The things that Quay Walker does well, he does very, very well. And I'm talking about he crashed the line of scrimmage and controlled the box in the run game better than he has ever before. That point of attack, take on blocks has always been a weakness in his game. Really wasn't last year. Outside of Baltimore, it was much, much better. He's always had that sideline to sideline range against the run, and he played to his physical tools. I got him drafted 22nd overall in 2022 last season. Second year in the same system certainly helped. He's a plus pass rusher from that position. He had double-digit pressures. That's all really, really good. And then you get to the pass coverage, which can really hinge on unplayable. And the problem with that is that if you are a Mike, you cannot hide in coverage. If you are a Mike, you are in control, especially in all the zone that the Packers like to play on the back end. You're in control of your area, intermediate, middle. And Quay Walker lacks a certain spatial awareness on things that are moving behind him. The inability to consistently drop deep enough. Sometimes he drops deep enough and there's slow reactions getting up in coverage on checkdowns. Both were an issue in the wild card game in Chicago, where it was just very clear if you watch the film, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams had gone back to the first two games that they played. They found the hole. And once the faucet was turned on, they started picking on Quay Walker relentlessly in coverage, and it never got better. That's why this is a really hard evaluation in terms of how do you evaluate his value? Because again, the things he does well, there is film that you look at Quay Walker and you see all pro linebacker. And then there's film of Quay Walker in coverage where you're like, how can you get that guy in the field? That's going to be tough.
You know, the other part about this, Ryan, is you see cuts come from like the Miami Dolphins that happened yesterday. And you start to think to yourself, okay, is there fits for these guys potentially in Green Bay on cheaper deals? Bradley Chubb being one of those guys that, you know, at one point was a really, really good edge rusher. Last year, 8.5 sacks, numbers virtually the same as Rashawn Gary, with the expectation of the Packers potentially moving on from Rashawn Gary. If it's you and you're Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur, how do you fix that edge rusher opposite of Micah Parsons this offseason?
Well, I think Kingsley Enagbare is a better answer because he played basically as well as Rashawn Gary. Is going to cost way less because he doesn't have the name cachet. He doesn't have the Pro Bowl on his resume. Rashawn Gary is such an interesting case because the pressures were there even after Pittsburgh. He had 32 pressures last season after his final sack that came in week 8. He had 14 pressures after Micah Parsons' torn ACL. He was pretty regularly in the backfield, but you're paid for sacks. And 10 straight games to end the season without sacks, that's where you start to look at, okay, you're going to save $11 million here on the cap because you got to have those plays. Coaches will tell you, and I understand the logic, the reasoning, that pressures are very important. They disrupt the quarterback, off-platform throws, all that. Sacks and drives. And if you don't have them, you're not going to have the same contract in this league because they are drive killers. Rashawn Gary didn't have them. So if you're going to save $11 million there, Kingsley Enagbare didn't have the sacks either, but he had a knack for every week making a play or two that really changed games. I'm talking about the 3rd-and-1 stop against Manunjai that set up the interception to Keyshawn Nixon for the Week 14 win against the Bears. It's just each week he was bringing that type. That's what you want from a depth guy. That's what you want from a rotational pass rusher. I think that there's something there because of the lack of cost. If you want to go and get Kingsley Enagbare and release Rashawn Gary, that's an option. If you're the Packers and you think, okay, there's some other explanation for the lack of sacks with Rashawn Gary, and Brian Gutekunst kind of noted this in his postseason pressure, saying that he had 60-some pressures, 7.5 sacks, did not finish the season as productive, but was still getting in the backfield. If they think that they can fix that, maybe they keep Rashawn Gary. I don't think it's a locked done deal that he's going to get released, although that's most likely. They just got to figure out why the closing speed was not there on those plays, especially when you did get continuous pressure.
He quit running. I mean, you watch Micah Parsons literally run by him. It became a running joke on the postgame show, counting how many times Rashawn Gary quit running on plays. Like, that's effort, Ryan. That's not closing speed. That's effort.
I have a hard time, and I saw the same thing you did. I have a hard time saying that that's effort because he's not looking as fast running next to Micah Parsons. Nobody looks as fast running next to Micah Parsons. That did him no favors. It's hard for me to say that's effort when he's rushing with a freak of nature. The freak of nature looks like a freak of nature. It's going to make everyone else look.
But I don't think that was the only play. I know it wasn't the only play where he pulled up and quit running on a play when a play was going on. Like, I'm telling you, again, you watched the film. I didn't. So I'm just talking from a fan perspective, watching the game and then, doing the post game show and that stuff. But to my memory, there were several times throughout the second half of that year where he just essentially slowed down running after a play.
Denver was bad. But again, a couple of those plays in Denver, you have Micah Parsons running from across the field, and he just looks like he's a different species because he is. It's hard for me to say a guy doesn't put in effort when he looks slower running next to Micah Parsons. That's where I'm at on it.
He is Ryan Wood, Packers beat writer of the Green Bay Press-Gazette, joining us here on Wisconsin Sports Daily. Steve Sparky Pfeiffer with you. Let's talk about Tyreek Hill. I love the idea of him in the offense. I don't trust the dude in the locker room. That's where my issue comes with him. But I mean, to think of a Matthew Golden, Tyreek Hill, Jaden Reed, and Christian Watson, 4 wide receiver set leaves you drooling at that possibility. How do you view that wide receiver position for the Packers going into the offseason?
It's very interesting because 2 years ago, if this was the scenario, I would have been pounding the table saying the Packers have to jump at this chance. I mean, this is absolutely designed for them to profile the team that needs a Tyreek Hill. 2 years later, that's just not the case at all. They already have too many mouths to feed in this passing game. They have in Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Tucker Kraft, 3 players that played only half seasons. 3 players that had really bad luck, right? They had injuries. You expect them to be healthier in 2026. We'll see if they are. But if they are, you're talking about 3 dynamic players that make plays and have an impact at all levels of the field. Christian Watson deep and intermediate, Jaden Reed out of the slot, Tucker Kraft, being the safety valve he is, it stretches those safe, high percentage throws close to the line of scrimmage into big plays routinely. And we talk about Jordan Love, his under pressure throws. Not having Tucker Kraft the second half of the season was a massive deal for that reason, because you can have the check down, you can have the 3-yard out, and he'll take it 20 yards. He did that first half. Not having him was big. That's your passing game, and you don't need to add a Tyreek Hill to that. You need those 3 guys to stay healthy, and then you need to emphasize and prioritize matchups when you have them week in and week out, because the horses in this passing game are there. They didn't always get the ball like the horses they are. I think that was the much bigger issue. I'm saying absolutely not to Tyreek Hill. ESPN
had a piece today talking about different free agents and projecting where they potentially could land. Greg Newsome, the third, I believe, who has been in Jacksonville, they put down the Packers for him, the cornerback, with the potential possibility of him re-signing back in Jacksonville. If the Packers are going to spend free agent money, does it make the most sense that it comes at cornerback?
I don't know the market well enough. You'd say Greg Newsome, and I'll be honest, I don't know his game right now, how it looked on film in 2025.
Well, he's a zone. He's a zone guy. So for Gannon's off defense, it seems to make sense.
What I will tell you is that I asked Brian Gutekunst, do you need wholesale change at corner? He does not see it that way. I tend to believe him.
I don't believe him.
I tend to believe him. Keyshawn Nixon's a starting corner in this league. He's not a number 1. There's a big difference between the two.
Fine.
But just because he's not a number 1 does not mean he's not a starting corner. He is a starting corner for a good defense in this league. The problem is he's the only one they have on the roster. They need another. They need another starting corner that you can put opposite Keyshawn Nixon and then have Javon Bullard in the slot. And then you're cooking with something. If Greg Newsome is that, then absolutely sign him up if you can get the right market price for him. But that's the hole that they have. It's not Keyshawn Nixon. He's not a number 1 corner. That's fine. Number 1 corner is like having a franchise left tackle or a franchise quarterback. There's not 32 of them in the NFL. Sometimes you just don't have one, but you got to have competency on all positions in your secondary, and they didn't when it came to Carrington Valentine and then Nate Hobbs, who couldn't stay on the field last year. That was the issue.
Ryan Wood, tell everybody about your next couple of pieces to wrap up the season, and then you're going to be off for a while, as you should be. Take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, so we've got defense. This is defense week, followed by last week, offensive week. If you missed it, go to PackersNews.com. These are massively extensive. It's an 11-part series, Spark, and I think it's going to come in at about 30,000 words. So if you really just want to deep dive on any one player, any one position group as a whole, it's all encompassing. Next Monday will be the final special teams, digging at all the film there, the penalties, the bright spots. Daniel Whelan, my goodness, what a season he had. The lack of having a return specialist on your roster. We'll cover everything here at Packers News.
It's funny, Daniel Whelan, I'm going to have a chance to talk with him tomorrow. So you can hear him tomorrow on Wisconsin Sports Daily, tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on. Follow him on X at @RyanWood. I appreciate it, my friend.
Hey, that'll be fun with Daniel Whelan. He did what I honestly thought was going to be impossible for a Green Bay punter. Never been done before. Leading the league in punting, kicking in that stadium late in that absolute shockingly good season.
Yeah, it's good. And, talk about Rich Bisaccia, whether he should have his job or not. I would imagine having a great punter helps to keep his job at this point. And the coverage units, and you'll know when you dive in the film, but the coverage units did seem better this year.
Hey, I'll tell you this real quick on Rich Bisaccia. I am completely apathetic to whoever the special teams coordinator is, because the reality is that, first, I've been covering this team since 2014. They've never gotten it right. At a certain point, if you keep going through spouses, you might be the problem, right? That's kind of the Packers with special teams. Along with that, if you don't have positions on your special teams filled, that's not a coordinator issue. It's not Rich Bisaccia's fault that Romeo Dobbs is taking punt returns. They didn't have a punt returner. So I'm not saying Rich Bisaccia is a miracle worker. He's the absolute fix to special teams, but he's not the problem either. I'm completely apathetic when it comes to coordinator. It's an organizational fix they have to make.
Ryan, I appreciate it. Again, follow him on X at @RyanWood. Wisconsin Sports Daily is what you're listening to now here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. He joined us on the guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Welcome back. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily. How y'all doing? Thanks to Ryan Wood for joining us from the Green Bay Press Gazette. Packers beat writer. He's done a remarkable job with the series that he put together, going in, analyzing the film, telling you what he saw. It's good stuff. So make sure to check that out as well. Follow him on Twitter, on X, I should say, by Ryan Wood. Still also to come today, Maury Brown, Forbes senior contributor. He's been covering baseball for 100 years. I haven't talked to Maury Brown in, 3 years, I guess it's been. It's been a while. And I saw him posting on X about what's going on with the Players Association and Tony Clark obviously stepping aside. They were supposed to have their first Players Association meeting today. That got canceled in spring training. And there is a name out there that Maury Brown thinks could potentially be a huge difference maker for the Players Association if they decide to go that way. And the way he talks about it scares me very much so, to the point where I think they're going to lose a ton of games if they go this way. So I want to get Maury Brown's take on that coming up at 3 o'clock. Charlie Sounds of the Day coming up at 3:40 as always. Paul Wagner, former Brewers pitcher, Lake Country.com's pitching coach. He joins us coming up at 4:20. Talk a little Brewers, but I really want to get into his head as far as what it's like when you're involved in the Players Association and get a player's perspective on this, right? From a fan perspective, we pick sides. We pick the owner side or we pick the player side and how we want this to go. But most of us have never played Major League Baseball, have never been involved in what this all really feels like and how much are the little guys really listened to in this whole situation. So we're going to pick his brain coming up at 4:20 on that. I want to talk a little bit because we didn't really get to it yesterday. There is a brand new podcast that is out. And we talked with Eric Kratz about it on Friday, who, of course, hosts Foul Territory with AJ Przinsky and Scott Braun. He's a former Brewers catcher, and Kratzy was really good, and we'll have him on throughout the Brewers season. But Corey Knable and our guy Kurt Hoke from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel are doing a new podcast / show called Brewer Territory. And what do they say? 3 times a week, I think they're doing it.
3 times a week.
And they've already done their first show or 2 is out. And there was a snippet on X earlier today about Corey Knable and Kurt Hoke talking about, hey, man, you got all of these pitchers that are all fighting to get innings and everything else. And obviously it's a long season. So how exactly are they going to break up the innings?
Said it last episode. I think that, look, we got a lot of young guys and there's a lot of unanswered questions, right? And who knows, that could be where we're trying to get as many spot starts, playing the days off, like I said, playing those matchups. And I think there's a lot of young guys that obviously they also want to keep healthy. So it might be come in for a spot start. You're going to come out of the pen. Y'all are going to, piggyback him after that, 1 game. So, I think, look, it's great for those young guys, right? To get that experience. And, hey, you're fresh for 4 innings. You're fresh for 3 innings. And then, you start to kind of tail off a little bit after that. So why not get them out while they're still fresh and bring in another fresh arm?
That is the thing that I really want to dive into. This whole notion of, we'll pitch him 4 or 5 innings and then get the next guy out and go to the next guy. This is the question I have for you. Simple. Would you want to see this Brewers pitching staff, namely the starting pitchers, work deeper into games than they have in the past? This Brewers organization and others, but the Brewers are definitely known for it. They're the ones that started this whole opener thing that they essentially outlawed. Because back when he was the Brewers manager, I called him Craig Counsell, did this at the beginning of a playoff game, and everybody threw a fit. So now, y'all, you've got to do A, B, and C before you can pull a pitcher out. Okay, fine. So now can we start to see pitchers start to go deeper into games, deeper into the 6th inning, maybe into the 7th inning? Tim Dillard, when he joined us, last week, I guess Dillard was on, he said he thinks that the trend is going to be where you're going to start to see pitchers starting to go deeper into games this season and moving forward. That's going to start to go back to the way that it was. Would you want to see that for the Brewers this year? Nicolay Law Talking text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Sparky with you along with Charlie using other side of the glass. My initial reaction to this
is hell yes. Yes, I want to see guys go deeper into the games to the 6th and potentially the 7th inning. I would love to see that, to know that, okay, I only need 3 guys to get me out of this game versus potentially needing 4 or 5 guys to get me out of a game if my starting pitcher is only pitching 5 innings. Now I need a guy in the 6th. I need a guy in the 7th. I need a guy in the 8th. I need a guy in the 9th. And that's only if somebody doesn't get themselves into trouble in one of those innings. And then I got to go get somebody else. And to do that on a consistent basis, in my opinion, stinks. We all love Freddie Peralta. I love Freddie Peralta. Did a ton in the community, worked with a lot of baseball camps and stuff with the youth and all this type of stuff, and was great. Loved Milwaukee, all of that. But what was the bang on Freddie Peralta the last couple of years?
Can't go longer than 5 innings.
And last year, it really became a point of emphasis. Why? Because you didn't have Woodruff to start the year. And he was your ace. He started the year as the one. And as the one, regardless of whether this is real or not, fan expectation is, man, you got to get me at least through 6, man. At least get me to the 7th, right? I mean, I get that you don't want to go 3rd time through the order because numbers say that pitcher gets hammered once they get 3rd time through the order. But at some point, you have to pitch 6 consistently. Now, as I said, my initial reaction is, hell yes. However, this year, I don't think it's realistic. The reason it's not is because you don't have a lot of guys that have pitched a great number of innings. When you have younger pitchers and you go from one year to the next, they generally look at what, a 30, 35% bump, sometimes 40% bump from 1 year to the year, from 1 year to the next in innings pitched. You're not going to see a guy throw 95 innings in 1 year and throw 250 innings in the next year. Like, it's just not going to be a thing. Maybe he throws 140, 145. So because of that, you're going to have to be careful here on how you go about things. As far as, okay, if you're going to have Brandon Sproat in the system this year, first time as a full-time starter, how much are you really going to put on his plate? If it's going to be Harrison, at least he's been a starter, right? How much you want to put on his plate? Jacob Mizorowski coming through again this year. With as hard as he throws and how his body contorts and everything else, do you draw a line in the sand and go, okay, I'm not going over X amount of innings with him, and we're going to have to be careful. Remember, that was the thing with Mizorowski last year was, oh my God, they're not going to have him for the postseason based on these pitch limits they're trying to do. And then they slow played him, if you remember correctly. Remember, he got hit on that comebacker? He finished the game, and then all of a sudden, poof, gone. And then he wasn't the same when he came back from that nonsense until they got to the postseason. So from that perspective, I don't think it works with this year's pitching staff because of the youth on the pitching staff. On top of that, your vet is coming back with his first full season off of that horrible shoulder injury that he had. So even with Woodruff at this point, Charlie, you kind of got to look at him and go, I need him to get through the season, right? Do I really want him every 5th day all year long, or do I have to figure out and schedule in, all right, we're going to skip a spot. We're going to skip a start here. We're going to call up whoever from AAA Henderson. He's going to come up here and spot start for you, and we're going to go through again before you pitch again. That type of stuff might be more common than people realize.
Maybe, but I need Quinn Priester going 7 innings more often. I need somebody like that who's been in the league longer and has less restriction on him. And frankly, even with these younger guys, I mean, you said you don't see very many players come in the rookie year and go from 90 innings to 175 innings. I know this is a little bit of a different situation, but he still is a young pitcher. Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Los Angeles Dodgers pitched 90 innings his rookie season. Last year, when he finished 3rd in the Cy Young race, he pitched 173.2 innings. He made that type of jump overall when they took off his restriction. And he was integral to them winning the World Series last year too, because he could go really long into these games and survive through stressful situations. I think when you put some of these pitch counts on some of these players, when they get close to that end of the pitch count is when you see a lot of those guys start to hit those injuries, and people are saying, oh, it's because the team got it right. No, I think it's because the players know they're getting to the end of that pitch count and start throwing harder, start wanting to improve more as they get closer to them being shut down for the rest of the season. These are the types of things I see. And I think for a Brewers team, when you are relying so heavily on this young pitching within your rotation, within your bullpen, you have to start trusting some of these guys a little bit more. You have to start letting these guys out of the pen a little earlier than maybe you wanted to in the past. I think guys like Quinn Priester, again, I think some of these other pitchers, I think Jacob Mizorowski, you have to increase his his innings pitched more than I think people are expecting them to. I think there's a lot of players that you are expecting to be key parts, all-stars again this season, and they need to be able to pitch longer into these games if they want to be able to do that.
You know, the other part about this too, and we're going to have Paul Wagner on at 420, so I'm going to bring this up with him as well, because I feel like, personally, older guys think this is all hogwash. Like, I think if you brought a bunch of older guys in and said, okay, how do you get this back to how it was back in the day? I think they probably have thoughts. And the thoughts may translate all the way down to the youth level, starting of how they're being treated down there, and then all the way up and how things change. Because usually how this goes is whatever you're doing at the major league level then translates down to college, starting to do those same type of practices that they do at the major league level. And then once colleges start doing it, then the smarter high school coaches are like, well, if they're doing this in college, we should be doing it with our program. And once that happens, now those parents that have kids in the youth level, oh, that's how they're doing it? Okay, we're going to do it the same way down here. And realistically, it doesn't have to be done the same way at every age level, depending on where each kid is at.
Bodies are different.
Yes.
Players grow differently. Each player changes differently. It's never going to be the same case at each level, let alone at each player's case. I think when you are a more veteran team, it's a lot easier to say, yeah, we have 1 to 2 guys in our rotation. We can put those guys onto that pitch limit like the Brewers had last year. This year, it's a completely different scenario. You have a really young group that needs, again, to step up. And I know that a lot of these old guys would say, yeah, it's as easy as pitching them as much as possible, but there's better ways to get these guys more innings going into the season. I think the Brewers have shown that they're able to do that. I think Jacob Mizorowski will pitch more than we expect. I think we'll see Logan Henderson a lot more than people are expecting.
Mizorowski built that base last year to now where he could take that next step. Absolutely.
He doesn't need to double his innings like Yamamoto did, but I think he needs to add 50 plus innings to that for sure.
And I think they're comfortable with that if that's the way they decide to go. Absolutely. Then the other guy, obviously, is Priester, and he takes that next step as well going forward. I got some reaction coming in on the YouTube and X dugout chat over there. Anton chiming in, Charlie.
He says, of course I want to see our pitchers go deeper in the game, back to the way it was in the past, and I feel that injuries would be a lot lower.
I got another one here from the 414. Sean downtown. Yeah, I want pitchers to go way deeper. Because let's see now. Because
it gets old going into the playoffs, not knowing who's going to get the ball.
Right. And I think that is something that I don't think you're going to know necessarily until middle to end of September based on who's doing what in the rotation. This isn't the good old days where at the beginning of the season, you had Woodruff, Burns, and Peralta and said, those are our 3 guys. Well, that's who will be there in the postseason if they're healthy. Right now, you look at this rotation, and I think realistically, you're like, well, I hope Woodruff is healthy. I hope Mizorowski pitches great this year. And I hope last year wasn't a blip for Priester. And those are my 3 guys going in. And then 4 and 5, Chad Patrick is 4. And then whoever your 5 is rotating throughout the year. If somebody surprises and overtakes one of those other 3, well, then you adjust accordingly, obviously going forward.
Yeah, but I think to Sean's point too, you have to start establishing those types of roles early on in the season. You have to find out if Jacob Mizorowski is going to be able to be that number 2 starter for you for the rest of the year. You have to find out if Quinn Priester can still have the same kind of consistency that he had for you last year. Yes, you don't find that out for sure cemently until September, but you have to start learning those things in March and April and May first.
I got one here from Ziggy on the Nicolay Law Talk and text line. I think it's absurd that established starters can't throw 100-plus pitches anymore, so we burn up bullpen arms all season. I get there's more stress on the arm, blah, 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 but don't these guys train and recover better than in the past? That's Ziggy. Ziggy, let me introduce you to Josh Hader. Going back to what Charlie said, how about how every guy's arm recovers differently? Some guys can't go 3 days in a row out of the bullpen. The arm just doesn't have it on that 3rd day. Other guys can give you 3, maybe even 4 days in a row. They have like a rubber band for an arm.
Aroldis Chapman has never had an arm injury. He throws 104 miles per hour every day.
Correct.
Crazy.
Everybody's arm and shoulder and elbow is different. Some guys can abuse the hell out of it and be fine. Other guys got no life in it, right? Or they're super sore and they can't do anything. So it's different from that perspective. But if the starters are going deeper into the rotation, now you start looking at those bullpen guys in the back end. Now it's, I don't need 3 guys that can go 2 or 3 innings. Now I can have 4 or 5 guys that can just go guns a-blazing for 1 inning, topping it out, and rotate those guys in the back end over the course of a week. Now I need 1 guy really that can be that long reliever. I don't need several guys that have to do that.
Well, and the Brewers have several guys who can be the rotation guys and also several guys who can be the long reliever type. They really have a plethora of talent in that bullpen that's going to help support those starting pitchers if injuries do start to attack that group.
We'll talk more about what's going on with Paul Wagner, LakeCountry.com's pitcher coach, former Brewers pitcher, plus the player side of what's going on with the CBA deal coming up. Tony Clark resigning. Talk to him at 4:20. Maury Brown, former senior contributor, talking about Major League Baseball. He had a tweet today that had me shaking my head and hoping he's wrong about who may replace Tony Clark and what that means for all of this, because it's not good if you're a fan. We'll talk to him at 3 o'clock. But coming up next, everybody wants to talk about tanking. How do you fix tanking? But does it really bother an NBA fan? It bothers the media people. It bothers other owners and GMs, right? It bothers them. But does it really bother you that Utah doesn't play starters in the 4th quarter of a game in the second half of a season? Would it bother you if the Bucks decided to hell with this? We're going to try and get a top 3 pick and suck on purpose for the last month and a half of the season. Would that have bothered you as a Bucks fan? Nicolay Law talking text line 414-677-1250. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here. Welcome back. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily. Sparky with you. Charlie using over there. Can you feel it? The thrill of witnessing a walk-off grand slam. Time's coming, man. We're into spring training. Game-winning touchdown, a buzzer-beating 3. A lot of those going on. Sparky, you know the feeling, and there's only one place to experience that raw exhilaration. Potawatomi Sportsbook. Catch all the action in a supreme space. Dozens of sports betting kiosks, cool drinks, 48 beers on tap, dozen different specialty cocktails, luxury seating, 2 levels. That second level, they will rent out to you, and maybe you can get maybe a smorgasbord of food up there for you and your family and friends, or maybe it's a business lunch or dinner, whatever the case may be. Plus, they've got great food at the Potawatomi Sportsbook, homemade desserts and pastries, all-day brunch, full menu, and a monster video wall, 2,000 square feet, 30 events at one time, only at the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Best in the Midwest. More info at Potawatomi.com. Again, must be 21 to enter the casino. And as I always suggest, reserve that seat ahead of time. Reserve that seat ahead of time. And that way, you are all set and ready to go. And you don't have to worry about getting down there and having to stand to watch all the basketball games or whatever the case may be. Hey, don't forget, coming up tonight during Wisconsin Sports Wrap-Up with Tommy Wirtz, it'll be featuring the Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame. Hear from Mason Crosby and former Packers president Mark Murphy, who it was announced today will be heading into the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame coming up later this year. Tune in to hear from Mason Crosby and Mark Murphy tonight between 5 and 6 o'clock on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. I realized that I teased on that last segment that we were going to talk about tanking. It doesn't bother you as an NBA fan. Unfortunately, we are going to be out of time, so we're going to move this to 3:20. We're just going to push this to 3:20, and we'll do it after we talk to Maury Brown, Forbes senior baseball writer and contributor. He'll join us coming up at the top of the next hour, and we'll get his thoughts on how exactly the CBA is, the discussion is going to play out now that Tony Clark has stepped aside. I've never been a part of a union. I've never had to pay union fees or go to union meetings or do any of that stuff. Never been a part of it. So I legitimately have no clue really of how this whole thing works. This is the one thing I know about baseball. The last time they lost a ton of games, there was this little dude about my size named Donald Fear, who was the players rep. He cost us the World Series, cost us a bunch of games, and it took Bud Selig forever and a day in order to get something hammered out. Now, what did they get hammered out? Well, revenue sharing began because of that, and numerous other things came out of that. I do not want to go through this again unless, at the end of the day, a salary cap is involved. Other than that, I don't want to lose a season and then there's no salary cap and nothing is fixed. Do not waste fans' times for a year of no baseball and then you don't fix the sport anyhow, because then fans are going to be beyond mad at that point. Q on the YouTube and X dugout chat wants to know if Charlie cut his hair.
I did cut my hair, Q. It's much shorter now. It's kind of ugly under the hat right now, but I'll give you a better
cut it on, what was it, Friday going
Mm-hmm.
into Valentine's Day weekend. Trimmed off the beard off of his face. Whole deal.
Now I'm even more cute than I already was before, right, Sparky?
Sure.
Yes.
Did your girl? I mean, your girl has to like it.
Yeah, she did like it.
It doesn't matter what
She's
I
always.
think.
It was a surprise to her too, so I was doing it as like a little kind of fun thing.
It was
she
weird.
was surprised.
It was weird for me on Friday. I felt like I was looking at somebody completely different on Friday. Now I'm used to it and I'm fine with it. Maury Brown joins us coming up next. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky with you.
Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks. Every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
Welcome in, hour number 2. Time is flying by. Yes, it is. It is a Tuesday. Hope all is well in your world. Thanks to everybody on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network for listening. Green Bay and Appleton on WNFL, the Flamethrower, 99.7 FM. And Duluth Superior, the game, 710 the game. Milwaukee, the Fan, 1250 AM, 105.7 FM, the Fan. And, of course, in beautiful Wausau, 93.9 the game in Wausau. So, coming up this hour, we're going to talk about this whole people getting bothered by tanking in the NBA. And does it really even bother you as a fan? We'll do that coming up in the second segment. Charlie's Sounds of the Day, as we do every day, comes up at 3:40. Plus, still to come, Paul Wagner, LakeCountry.com's pitching coach, former Brewers pitcher, pitched with the Pirates back in the day when Jim Leland was the manager, and Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla and Andy Van Slyke, all those cats were on that team. Wagner was on that roster as well. So we'll talk to Paul a little bit about the Brewers, more so about being a player involved in all of this and all of the CBA nonsense and everything else. So we'll talk with him coming up at 4:20. Now, on the other hand, we got to talk to a guy I haven't talked to in quite a bit, and I missed him, so I had to get him back on. He is Maury Brown, former senior contributor. He's covered baseball for 100 years. Follow him on X at BizBall Maury. Maury, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Maury joins us on the guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. So your thoughts first, before we get into your idea of who may be next in line, on what happened here with Tony Clark as head of the Players Association and suddenly out of nowhere stepping aside when today was supposed to be the first meeting in spring training for the Players Association.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a federal investigation into self-dealing within not just the MLBPA, but the NFLPA. And Clark had kind of been at the center of it. And just before going on the air, it's come out that he had an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law. Now, I don't know what that means.
What does that have to do with being the head of the Players Association?
Right, but here's what it has to do with it. He was hired by the Players Association in 2023. So that would be considered self-dealing, right? That's something that you probably wouldn't want hanging over the Players Association, having an investigation, having that going on as they're heading into, I would say, the most critical labor negotiations since the 94-95 strike. So, I mean, he may have seen that this was going to be a major distraction, and there's little doubting that that would be the case. He could have probably fought it, but it would have been a bad distraction. And it's better to have this happen now. They haven't started actual collective bargaining, and it normally starts right after the season gets underway. So, you got about a month and a half or two to get, things in order. So I think that he probably saw the writing on the wall and stepped out of the way.
Okay, so let's talk about how he was while he was in charge of the Players Association. Do you think in his short time that he was there that he was a benefit to them?
Yeah, this is a great question because I was just talking about this. So the players really started to slip in the labor deal right before Tony Clark came in, and that was under former executive director Michael Weiner, who passed away from cancer. Tony Clark comes on board. He doesn't have a lawyer, background. He doesn't have really much in the way of labor background. He's the first player that the Players Association had as an executive director. And under the labor deal that was reached, it was uniformly agreed to that the owners got the upper hand. They brought in Bruce Meyer from the NHLPA as part of legal counsel to do their labor relations part. And then he was able to claw back in this current deal. But look, I mean, it's going to be probably noted that under Clark, the owners got the upper hand. Even if there's clawback in this current deal that we're under now, I just think that the owners still have the upper hand on this. So I think that it's probably going to be looked at that it wasn't very favorable for him. Again, if you look at the strides that were made under certainly Donald Fear and others leading up to where Tony's at, and you go ahead and you size him up, it's probably not the best that you have in the history of the MLBPA.
Talk with Maury Brown, a Forbes senior contributor, and follow him on X at BizBallMaury. Gene Upshaw was the guy that was running the NFL Players Association when the cap was instituted in the National Football League. For years and years and years, I have heard lots and lots of former players criticize that whole decision, thought that Gene was in bed with the NFL more than he was paying attention to the Players Association. So obviously baseball does not want to be in that rabbit hole with whoever they decide to move on with next. The guy that you mentioned on your post on X, Bruce Meyer, does not seem to be anything close to Gene Upshaw.
Oh, no. I mean, Bruce is a true, labor hawk. I mean, he's somebody that was underneath Don Fear at the NHLPA after Don left the MLBPA. So in talking with him, he is a no BS kind of guy. And if you look at what's happened over these, certainly the current labor deal that MLB is under, and then the mini labor agreement that had to happen for the pandemic shortened season, it was super acrimonious. It was so bad between Bruce Meyer on the union side and Dan Hillem on MLB side, that Tony Clark and Rob Manfred had a private meeting in Phoenix to try and broker a deal outside of it to reach an impasse. So look, I just think that Bruce is going to be more of the guy that you would remember under somebody like Donald Fear, somebody who comes from a labor background, somebody that has really been underneath that kind of thing. That's a true union guy. So in discussions with him that I've had, he seems to very much be of the absolutely no, are we going to go down this road with a salary cap over my dead body kind of thing. So I think that it actually, if Bruce is put in there as interim, and I can't imagine that they won't, that's something that we have to wait to see what happens after the players have their meeting. I would expect this to be a much more firmed up position with Bruce Meyer, if he indeed is the interim executive director. He's currently the deputy executive director of the union right now.
I was having a conversation earlier today, Maury Brown, with one of my cohorts, and we were talking about this whole deal, and I said, I don't care. I just don't want it to be Donald Fear. Anybody but Donald Fear, because if it's him, it's over. And I just saw quotes from him concerning this the other day that the MLBPA put out on social media, a quote from Fear. I was like, oh my God, please not this again. Because again, when he was in charge, he lost the World Series, lost all that. Him and Bud fought back and forth forever. And really at the end of the day, steroid testing never came out of it. And by everything I heard was if he wanted to fight for steroid testing and drug testing further, Bud, they would have lost more games on top of that. So he just gave up on that fight. They got revenue sharing at the end of the day, but really, other than the revenue sharing, not much else came out of that deal. And if you're saying this is one of his guys, I mean, if they lose games, because Meyer's going to be dug in, and if the owners are going to be dug in, if they lose games, they lose a year, and there's no cap at the end of this, I mean, that is going to be some big-time damage done to the baseball fan base that I think is going to be hard to try and fix.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it was a whole season. I mean, is it out of the question? I mean, nothing's out of the question, I suppose. I think that, of course, the owners got wise, and when I say owners, I mean Rob Manfred, as the commissioner, has understood and looked across the aisle at what the NFL, the NBA, and NHL has done, which is that lockouts are the mechanism that they give themselves leverage up front. So you would, I think most people agree that there's a very high probability of a lockout on December 1st. We had this happen prior. That means that free agency would freeze up, trades would freeze up, players would be locked out of, rehabbing at team facilities and whatnot. And then you start to use the season as leverage, right? So there would be no strike, I guess, in the future. I don't ever see a strike ever happening again. Where it really starts to happen, right, is of course at the beginning of the season the pressure is all on the players because they'd start losing paychecks, and there's a number of clubs that I think that if you could get them in a quiet corner away from everybody, would say, hey, we might actually save money in April and May, right? When the weather's bad, school's not out. That pressure increases on the owners the closer you get to the summer. So once school starts to get out and then you have that, then it starts to lean on the owners. But I'll tell you this, I think that there's a lot of pressure on everybody all the way around. There's a lot of good momentum. Though, we have 3 consecutive seasons of attendance increases. We had a fantastic postseason and World Series, right? Television ratings and viewership have been up considering how it's been in the past 2 years. Baseball's in a good position, and you're going to throw that all away in a time when there are more options than ever for people to just walk away. This isn't 94, 95 when there was no Netflix or Hulu or any of that stuff or your iPhone to distract you. There's a lot more competition, and I think that there's some realization of that. So how far they're willing to go, how many games they may potentially lose, that's going to be the ultimate question. And I think that largely sits with the owners. I mean, if they want to go for a cap, they have to understand that that's a red line for the union. It has always been a red line, and they've never buckled under that. They have to think that the only thing that might come out of this is that somebody like Donald Trump steps into the middle of it and makes it a major deal. Now, he's, clearly somebody that's not very pro-labor, so maybe they think that there's something there, but there's nothing to say that Donald Trump wouldn't be mad at all sides of this thing if that were to happen. So again, I think there's an awful lot to lose for both sides. And I say this as media rights, right? The national TV deals come up in 2028, and the local media rights, Rob Manfred's trying to shop. So if this is the kind of chaos you're going to sell to your media rights partners, who's going to want to go ahead and invest in that? If it's just going to be pure chaos every time there's a labor deal, we had walked away from that largely under the last few years under Bud Selig, and now it seems like that's out the window.
Maury Brown joins us, Forbes senior contributor. Follow him on X at BizBall. Maury joins us here on Wisconsin Sports Daily on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Steve Sparky Pfeiffer with you. So dynasties in sports have always been something debated, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Is it bad when the Yankees were really, really good for years in running roughshod? Is that bad? When Michael Jordan, the Bulls won 6 of 8 because Jordan had whatever happened and went off and played baseball for a couple of years. Was that good or is that bad for the NBA? Because right now it feels like the reason why most fans are mad is because of the disparity in payroll between the Dodgers and everybody else. And I can just say for you, being here in Wisconsin, the Brewers are a rarity. Being able to compete with the payroll that they have year in and year out, even though they're not in a situation ever to push all in and expand payroll to $100 million more than they are, they do the best that they can at this point. But I think people around the country now are getting frustrated by there's just continuously growing at the top and the bottom isn't growing. And that's why so many people feel like, hey, look, if we made the floor, say 150 or something like that, and took that top end and just stopped it somewhere, if it's 250, if it's 300, whatever, just stopped it somewhere and closed the gap. And then when these smaller markets eventually can start to pick up steam and add money little by little, at least they know they're gaining. Right now, the Brewers could add 10 million, the Dodgers could add 50, and you lost space. You lost ground, essentially, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the thing that gets lost in this discussion is I think the problem is more at the bottom than at the top. And so, sure, go ahead, if you want to go ahead and tamp stuff down at the top and continue to do it. Remember, when we've increased the luxury tax penalties, hundreds of millions of dollars are flowing back to these small market teams. So there's nothing at the bottom that really presents them to go ahead and move up. But let's say for all intents and purposes, somebody falls off and clunks their head and we get a cap and we get a floor. I don't see any situation in which there's this huge increase all of a sudden, even if it's grandfathered in right over a period of time, and it's a gradual thing, that you're going to see small market clubs increase much past where they need to be. I mean, the ones at the bottom are the ones that have the most to lose at this point. Ones at the top, if they're able to go ahead and procure talent and pocket a bunch of money, then they're probably going, yay for us. I mean, it would be a boon for the ownership of the Dodgers and the Mets, Phillies, Blue Jays. They're going to make a ton of money and be able to pocket it. It's whether you have a mechanism at the bottom. So suddenly the Pirates and suddenly the Brewers would have to pay more. They would have to have that money. And that whole structure changes. Like, how are we going to deal with salary arbitration? And what happens to the minimum salary? I mean, it would be something you couldn't do anything to the contracts that are currently in place.
Right.
It would have to be grandfathered in for years, right?
Correct.
So you're not going to see true change, I would say, for 5, 6, maybe 7 years before you would see anything there. And I don't know how much you would see really at the bottom that much.
I got a listener chiming in, Cannon River West, using the Nicolay Law Target text line. A salary cap is a lazy, simplistic solution that hurts labor. Increased revenue sharing and luxury tax penalties combined with policies requiring that a certain percentage of shared revenue is spent on player payroll is a more practical solution. They need a stronger soft cap and a soft floor. What say you, Maury Brown?
Yes, that's exactly what they should do. Look, the owners didn't have a problem going after the players and getting them to institute a luxury tax system. Then by extension, it seems only fair that the players go, let's put a luxury tax in reverse at the bottom. So you go, okay, you want to go ahead and you want to drop below a certain threshold, then you lose draft pick compensation, or you lose revenue sharing money. And if you do it in subsequent years, or if you do it by a large amount, your penalties increase, just like we have at the top. And then you can finagle the top and the bottom in subsequent deals, right? But you're just not going to get a cap. I don't see how it does that without going completely nuclear and potentially poisoning the well for many years, right? So why go there? Let's see if you can get something that makes a little bit more sense. There's ways to do this. I mean, I think that's the deal. It's whether there's a will on the part of the parties to make this sort of thing happen. The players would be perfectly happy to stick with where it's at.
Sure.
There's clearly economic disparity. There's no arguing that
but Maury,
at all.
But wait a second. I got to ask this. I mean, you said earlier, well, if we get these guys off in a quiet room away from themselves and ask them, I mean, I'm sorry. I can't imagine that somebody on the Pirates is happy with how this is set up, or somebody on the Marlins or the Rays or even the Brewers, even though they compete every year, going, man, if this was a little bit closer, we'd have a better chance of potentially winning. Yeah, if you're on the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies, you're loving life. But these other guys, the bottom half, well, I don't know, maybe if it's even more than past 16 to 30, whatever, but half this league, for the most part, can't compete that way. And if you're a player on that team, especially if you've been there for a while, it's got to get frustrating.
Yeah, I think the where the context needs to come into play is this. Baseball has the best parity of all the major sports, right? Now, the caveat to that is the further you go in, especially when you get into 7-game series, that's where the money really starts to come in, because that's where your focus on pitching starts to really show. That is largely where you start to see, we watched it. The Brewers, had the best record in the league last year. What happens? Right? They just can't compete once they get into the postseason. So there's this idea. Let's say they add another 2 teams, right?
Yep.
To the playoffs. Which was something, by the way, in the last labor deal, the owners wanted to get. The players said, no, we're going to add some, but you're not going to get all you want. Well, let's say they did. So you'd have basically something more similar to what the NHL has or what the NBA has. So it's easy to get in. That helps you sell your season tickets for next year. You say you sell them on hope. But it becomes more and more difficult the further you go down the line in the postseason to go ahead and do that. And that's where the money really starts to come into play. So there's little saying that. Now, is that really going to change under a cap system? I don't believe that it really will. I think that what it does is it may help maybe the middle class, maybe the Seattle Mariners or the Phillies, or the, clubs that are in the top third. All of them, right? Maybe those clubs have a better shot at it. But do I really think that the clubs that are going to hang around, let's say it's 110 million or 120 million, are they really going to do it? I look in the NBA. What are the Bucks lucked out? How did the Bucks luck out? They did it through the draft.
They paid out of their rear end. They were hanging around the second apron because they got 3-4 billionaire owners all willing to spend until they won a championship and have been willing to spend to keep Giannis. But again, if that's Herb Cole and it's not Wesley Edens and Lazary and these guys, there's no way the Bucks ever would have gotten to where they were, because there's no way Herb Cole would have paid that tax.
Right. And I live in Portland, Oregon, and I watch the Blazers, right? So and those are cap systems, right? Now, granted, it's a soft cap, but there's nothing to say that those smaller markets still would not be at somewhat of a disadvantage. I think that the one thing that absolutely is certain in a cap system is this. Every owner in Major League Baseball would see the value of their franchises increase because you have now cost certainty. And I think that and this has already been said out loud by people that are involved in the sale of Major League Baseball clubs. They've said that they've looked across the aisle at certainly the NBA, where we've seen an increase in franchise value. Every single club from top to bottom, that is irrefutable. Their franchise values would increase more dramatically than they do now. So that's part of the deal, right? I mean, that's a factor within it. Is it going to potentially create more competitive parity? Maybe. Like I said, maybe the middle class has more of a shot. But I don't know if I look at, it's not like the Cleveland Browns are ripping it up. Again, I think that the thing that's most important is you can have a cap system, but if you don't have smart people running your organization, then it doesn't matter. And baseball, where you have to have I would argue the most smarts, right? Because your roster, you don't have skill players like a quarterback and receiver core that can change the game outcome because they're on the field all the time, or a point guard and forward that can run the full length of a game, right? Your hitters are up every inning and a third. Your best starters are up every fourth day. You have to be really smart and have a well-balanced roster. And that requires not just being able to have money. It helps, right? You can maybe get in there and do some stuff. But again, I think that people overestimate what a cap system would do in baseball. I don't know if it would change the class structure that we have. There would always be advantages to big markets. There normally always is. Now, look, the Knicks, the Giants, the Jets, okay, you can make a case that they haven't really done anything in big markets. Have the Yankees done anything recently? No. Have the Dodgers? Yes. Again, smart clubs, and that's something that I think gets lost about the Dodgers. They're really smart. Yeah. I mean, they have a ton of money. That helps an awful lot. They're able to absorb mistakes that they may potentially make in the drafting, right, or player development that the Brewers or the Pirates or the Marlins don't have. There's just not a lot of room for error. So, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that. But
I mean, from a Brewers fan standpoint, if you said, here's another $50 million every year for the Brewers to spend, I'd be like, okay, now we have a much better chance of actually getting something done here versus trading Peralta, trading Burns, trading Hader. Contreras is probably gone after this year. And that's where it gets old. And again, like I said, we're spoiled. We've got great personnel that draft well. We have the number one farm system in baseball. And all of that as well, but it's just like, okay, am I going to see this in my lifetime? Are we ever going to see this team go to a World Series in my lifetime? And looking at the Dodgers right now, I don't see how that happens, but either way.
Well, the last thing I'd say about this is that the one advantage that system would allow is that it would give clubs like the Brewers a chance to sign extensions to their players that they draft and develop instead of watching them walk away in free agency.
Right.
So there is that, right? I mean, that would be one advantage.
Yep, and that would be good. Maury Brown, you are awesome. Love having you on. Forbes senior contributor. Follow him on X, @BizBall. Maury, you'll hear more on our show for sure going forward. Maury, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
All right, man. You take care. Thanks for having me.
Take care. There he is, Maury Brown on the guest hotline. Powered by Gruber Law. One call. That's all. We're screwed. We're totally screwed.
That's not
if Bruce Meyer gets that gig, it's over. Like, it's so over. Like you couldn't even because look if you say we'll go the NBA route, right? So now you could give Brandon Woodruff the max and nobody else can unless they have the room or whatever the case may be. Fine, but there is a soft cap or whatever you want to call it in the NBA with the luxury tax penalties and everything else. And to a degree, you have that in baseball right now, but it's not stopping anybody like the Dodgers from doing it year over year over year over year over year. So even though you are in a position to possibly pay somebody that much money, is Mark going to pay it? Is he going to pay it? He doesn't have the money of the Bucks owners. So even if he has an opportunity to pay somebody max money, I still don't think he pays it.
Probably not. But what you can rely on, I guess, is that I guess I'm looking at this from a glass half full perspective.
As you do with some stuff.
As some stuff, not all stuff, some stuff. But Maury had talked about how smart the Dodgers are too.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're going to make mistakes, right? Eventually, they're going to start messing up a little bit, even if they are spending money, because you're seeing teams like the Mets who spend a ton of money and still don't get to that level. See teams like the Cubs spend a decent amount of money and still don't get to that level. There's teams that are spending money that are losing to teams like the Brewers, are losing to teams like the Cleveland Guardians who aren't spending that money. I think what the Brewers can hope is as long as they stay on this course that they're on and they do eventually spend a little bit more money when they are forced to, the Dodgers will eventually make a mistake and the Brewers can capitalize on that.
This is the thing. As Maury Brown told you, they can absorb mistakes and just fix them with money. The Brewers can't absorb mistakes and fix it with money. If you screw up on a long-term deal, back in the day, Jeffrey Hammonds was the big free agent signing thanks to all the money American Family Field was bringing in, or Miller Park at that time, and he's hurt and can't play. You suck. You wasted $7 million a year, whatever it was, on Jeffrey Hammonds, and he couldn't stay on the field. And to the Dodgers' point, do you know how old Andrew Freeman is, the president of the Los Angeles Dodgers?
He's pretty young, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Huh?
He's younger.
He's my age.
Yeah.
He's
50.
49.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to be there for at least another 10 years, at least. And probably maybe 15. So, again, they're not going anywhere. Do you know where Andrew Freeman came from before the Dodgers?
Tampa Bay, maybe?
That's right.
Yeah.
GM
I was going to say, I'm going to
executive
assume Tampa Bay.
where Matt Arnold was, right? So, I mean, again, Brewers got a smart dude running our show too. He just doesn't have all the money that he does. The job that Matt Arnold is doing is a million times tougher than the job that Freeman is doing. It's just not even remotely close. And David Stearns is learning a valuable lesson. Just because you have a bunch more money doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fix itself overnight. So he's weeding out the locker room and the clubhouse, getting guys in there that he wants in there, trying to refix this farm system and do it. And, you know, Mets fans have no patience whatsoever for any type of building it the right way. But he's going through it too now. Brewers here, you can do that and nobody blinks an eye. While we're the Brewers, nobody expects us to do anything anyhow. There, it's World Series or bust every year because you got Steve Cohen, one of the richest guys ever, sitting there fronting you the money. You're like, no, I don't want to spend the money on that guy. No, I don't want to spend the money on that guy, right? And then people get mad. It's not Milwaukee, Stearns. It's New York. You can spend the money. It's okay. And people get livid at him. Yeah, whatever.
They were mad when he didn't spend that money on Javier Baez, and Javier Baez ended up being the worst player in baseball for 5 seasons. He's
all
smart,
mad about
man.
Alonso going to the Orioles. I bet you money they will look fine on that deal. I guarantee you they will look fine, Alonso going to the Orioles. All right, take a quick timeout, come back. That's enough of the baseball talk. Until Paul Wagner joins us, a former Brewers pitcher and LakeCountry.com's pitching coach. We'll get his thoughts on all of this coming up at 4:20. But up next, people are talking about tanking. Adam Silver, we're going to fix tanking. Everybody's got a million freaking ideas, but I haven't seen anybody come to you all and ask you what you all think about tanking in the NBA or tanking in sports. It can be football, it can be baseball, whatever the case may be. It's prevalent in the NBA. That's what everybody's talking about because Utah made it so blatant this year. But let's have that conversation. Does it bother you? Would it have bothered you had the Bucks said, Giannis ain't coming back, even though he can, and we're going to rest Miles Turner because he got some back spasms, quote unquote, and we're really going to do this the right way? Would it have bothered you? Would you made you upset if they were trying to get a top 3 pick this year coming up in the draft lottery? Nikolay Lautaka, text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Here, Sparky with you. Wisconsin Sports Daily. Sparky with you, Charlie Usen over there. Thanks for tuning in here on a Tuesday. Don't forget, Wisconsin Sports Wrap-Up comes up tonight at 5 o'clock. Wisconsin Athletic Sports Hall of Fame, Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame hour tonight with Tommy Wirtz during Wisconsin Sports Wrap-Up. Mark Hasselby in studio. Mason Crosby, you'll hear him on the show tonight. And at 5:45, former Packers president Mark Murphy will join Tommy and Mark at 5:45 tonight. Looking forward to that. As they announced earlier today, he will be one of the new members into the newest class for the Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame coming up later this summer. So congratulations to Mark Murphy on that honor, and looking forward to hearing him tonight. So Mason Crosby, Mark Murphy tonight between 5 and 6 here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Okay, as an NBA fan, does tanking bother you? That's what I'd like to know. Does tanking bother you as an NBA fan? Nicolay Law Talk and text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250, on the socials at WI Sports Radio, streaming live on X and on YouTube. Also can find us on Instagram and Facebook, where you want us to be. TikTok, not yet. Eventually, though.
Sparky's going to do dances for you guys.
No, not a TikTok guy, but I know it's coming, so I'm just preparing myself to be on TikTok at some point. So this is something that I really wanted to have a conversation about, because quite honestly, the NBA is overthinking this. They really are. I really don't think most fans care. I don't think somebody in New York cares that Utah isn't playing their starters in the fourth quarter. I don't think anybody, in Philadelphia cares that Utah isn't playing their starters in the fourth quarter. The reason why it is this way is because of how stacked the top of this draft is. And really, the whole first round is going to be really good. But the first 5 guys, 6 guys, 10 guys, whatever you want to say, is stacked. Elite star talent. Does it mean they're all going to work? No. But the belief is amongst many NBA teams that it's loaded, right? So that's why you have everybody doing everything possible to make sure they have as best a chance as possible to get the ping pong balls to go in their direction. The last time I can remember it being like this, and it wasn't as blatant as this, but where everybody was sitting guys left and right, was the Greg Oden, Kevin Durant, Al Horford draft. Those were your top 3. That was the last time I remember it. And if memory serves correctly, the Bucks were one of those teams sitting everybody. You got a hangnail, you're not playing. Stubbed your toe, you're out for the season. The Bucks were one of the teams selling out. Like, I want Durant. I want Oden. Whatever. I need one of them. Do you want to know what happened that year? It was the first year in NBA history that the 3 worst teams, none of them finished in the top 3 in the lottery. Not a single freaking one. The worst team didn't finish in the top 3. The second team, worst team, didn't finish. The Bucks, who were the 3rd worst team, they finished in 6th. So instead of no draft lottery, they picked 3. Do you know what that would have been? That would have been Al Horford with Andrew Bogut. Oh boy, how things could have been different had that been it. Do you know what happened instead? They drafted at 6 and took E. Leon. That's what happened. From Oden, Durant, or Horford to E. Leon. You want to talk about franchise changing? And everybody was livid because, again, conspiracy theorists on the lottery were like, really? That's how this is good. That's how this played out, right? So, because again, people were talking about it at the end of that year. Like, these teams are all like, to hell with it, because everybody wanted Oden and Durant. Horford, kind of. He was really good at Florida, but there was about these other 2 guys. And again, like I said, you don't know. Oden was hurt his whole career, never worked out. Durant, megastar, saw at Texas that he was going to be a megastar. So they did what they had to do, and all 3 teams got screwed. Bucks luck every day of the week. Could have had Durant potentially, and you don't get him. Durant and Bogut and Michael Redd. How different is things in Milwaukee if that happens?
Yeah, that would have been a pretty fun group to watch, for sure.
Golly, man. Unbelievable. So, again, this has happened before. But am I against it? No. I wanted the Bucks to tank. I wanted the Bucks to suck, to have a chance at these top 3 to 5 players. And instead, now we're going to go try and be in the playoffs. Charlie in West Dallas, you're next on the Nicolay Law Talk and Text line. What's up, Charlie?
Hey, how you guys doing?
All right.
So here's my comment, and you guys probably aren't going to agree with it. I'm pretty well old school. I don't believe that teams should stop playing. I don't. Stop playing to win. No matter what, I believe that things will fall where they should fall. I don't believe in quitting. You're going to play. You're going to play. If you're playing out there, you play to win. No matter where you're at. Another thing I don't agree with newscasters saying teams should tank. I don't agree with that either. I don't agree that if you want to assume that somebody is, that's fine. If you want to assume that they are, but for people to be on the radio saying, well, they need to tank, I don't agree with that either.
Charlie, when Giannis leaves, when will the Bucks have their next superstar, and how are they going to get him?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I do. They're not going to. Charlie, I know. Nobody is signing in Milwaukee to come here and play. LeBron was never going to sign here. Durant was never going to sign here. Nothing. How did they get Giannis? They drafted him in the middle of the first round. Did anybody think he was going to be this good? No. Why did they draft him? As John Hammond told me, we got to hit a home run, and this is the only chance we have of taking a long shot and hoping it works out and we get lucky. And it worked out, and they got lucky. But going forward, if and when Giannis leaves, and who knows, maybe he'll retire a Buck. But whenever that's over, how do they get the next guy? I mean, that's it. And the best way to get the next guy is to get it in the lottery. That's the best way. And sometimes you have drafts like the Bogut draft where it's Bogut and Marvin Williams. Neither one was, superstar LeBron James. Neither one was a guarantee. And that's when the Bucks won that year, right? This here is about as close to locked in as possible for a loaded top 5 in this thing.
I understand what you're saying, but when you go back to, I go back to this. I'll say this real quick and I'll let you guys go. So everybody's into this thing about, okay, they're cheating, so-and-so's cheating, so-and-so's cheating. So to me, all that is still cheating. That's all cheating to me. I'll let you guys go. Thank you.
Thanks. That's a whole nother conversation. When I think of cheating, I'm thinking about going around the rules to try to win, right? He's saying you're cheating because you're trying to lose. But understand that the guys on the floor aren't trying to lose. The guys on the floor are playing to win. When they went through the process, Sam Hinkie, when he was the general manager before he got ousted, and he stripped that damn thing down, he didn't tell his players to go lose. They played hard every night. They were trying to win. They did the best job they could, but he took all the toys out of the toy box to try and shift the odds to how they wanted it. And it got them Joel Embiid. Did it work out the way they wanted as far as winning a championship? No, but that's how he went about it because they had nothing else to go with at that point in Philadelphia to try and build that thing. So again, we'll just agree to disagree on how to do this. But in Milwaukee, you're not LA, you're not Miami, you're not New York, you're not attracting free agents ever to come here. You have to do it through the draft and get lucky at some point. Charlie, Sounds of the Day is coming up. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky with you. Wisconsin Sports Daily, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. C. Sparky Fiver here with you. Thanks for tuning in. Love me some Def Leppard, all about it. We do have to build bumper music for this show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about opening it up to people listening to the show as far as if they have songs or groups that they want us to play as bumper music on this show. It'd be this show. Let me clarify, this show. If you have songs and names and groups that you would like us to hear, tomorrow from 2 to 5, we will take suggestions on the Nicolay Law Talk and text line. We'll build a playlist, and then we'll have our guy, McD, put together new bumpers for the show that will start next Monday, let's say, after we do this. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Let the fans pick the music.
Anton's already in the dugout chat yelling Van Halen.
I love Van Halen. Now the question is, which Van Halen?
One of them. I don't know, man. I don't know a lot of Van Halen.
Well, no, there's two different lead singers, right? So I'm a big Sammy Hagar guy, but everybody's got their own opinions on which one, David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar.
I think I know the David Lee Roth one better.
Probably. They're both really good.
Yeah.
A lot of people like David Lee Roth better than Sammy. I like
that was
Sammy.
Like 100 years ago, man. I can't think of all that old person music.
What are we doing? Why are we making fun of me for? Ain't nobody need to make fun of me. You know, that's another reason you go to Habish, and Rotier, because they're not going to make fun of you like Charlie does when you go in there. They're going to be sympathetic. They're going to have their arms open. Talk to me. Let me help you. Not Charlie. That ain't what I get here every day. But Habish, and Rotier, they'll do that for you. Now, part of the reason is they're older and more mature than Charlie and understand life a little bit more. They've been around since 1930. 13 locations across the state of Wisconsin. It's a beautiful thing. They are wherever you want them to be, right? If you're listening, the game in Wausau, WNFL in Green Bay and Appleton, they're right there in your backyard amongst many of their different locations. We do the Plead the Fifth Friday segment. It's brought to you by Habish, and Rotier as well, where you could tell a host on Wisconsin Sports Radio Network or a player or a commentator on TV, anybody you want to plead the fifth. Shut up. Quit talking about this, right? You could have those nominations all week long. You just let Charlie know, and then he'll go and pull the sound, and we can play them back for you every Friday at 4:20. Or you can call in on Fridays at 4:20 to talk about it. But the one thing you have to understand, you may not use Habish, and Rotier today, right? You don't need them. You weren't involved in a car accident. You have no personal injury to deal with. But when you do, that's who you've got to remember. Experience matters when the stakes get high, right? You want somebody that's prepared and knows everything that possibly could happen. Not somebody guessing and assuming they know what's going to happen. That's what puts these guys on top. That's why they've got all of these wins, big wins across the state of Wisconsin. And it doesn't matter how much money they're trying to get you, even if it's a smaller amount. They're going to work their tail ends off for you. Because that's what you would do for your friend or your family member if you were in a position to help them out, right? They're going to do the same thing for you. Habish, and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. Check them out at Habish.com or call them 800-2HABISH. Again, Habish.com. Charlie Sounds of the day, we're going to have to move that. We'll combo up at 4:40 after the Paul Wagner interview from Lake Country Counts pitching coach, former Brewers pitcher. He'll join us coming up at 4:20. Coming up at the top of the next hour for our Green and Gold update brought to you by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers because there is some talk floating around about Josh Jacobs' future in Green Bay because of the money the Packers can save if they were to move on from the Packers running back. Then on top of that, you have another running back, very good running back on another prominent team, one that may have won a Super Bowl, that apparently is going to get to free agency, it sounds like. No franchise tag, no nothing like that. He's going to get to free agency. And that now may become an option if the Packers were to move on from Josh Jacobs. So we'll discuss Josh Jacobs' future in Green Bay and what do you think the Packers should do with Josh Jacobs going forward? Nicolay Law Talk and text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250 on the socials at WI Sports Radio. Let's see here. Anton chimes back in the dugout chat, says Sammy about Van Halen. Got another one coming in here from the, let's see. What is this? The 480.
480. Oh, yeah.
480. All Van Halen, Sparky. in on Van Halen as well. Leader in the clubhouse. But again, we're going to do this tomorrow, but it feels like there's some Van Halen support, right? It feels like there's some Van Halen support, which is fine. I'm all about some Van Halen. I'm not going to argue against that. I'm anxious to see what this looks like.
Can I put in a couple like younger people bands or music or something?
Absolutely not. No, your votes will not count tomorrow. No, it will not count. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky with you.
Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks. Every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, we're piecing things together here. What we've pieced together is that 480 comes from a longtime listener from back in the day, Cactus Pete. Memory serves correctly. Vikings fan. Cactus Pete, Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember where I was. If I was at Summerfest or State Fair. I had never met Cactus Pete before.
Okay.
And he shows up and introduces himself.
Right.
Cactus Pete could bench press multiple cars at one time. His arms were like gigantic. I was like, okay, all right. Do not mess with Cactus Pete. Noted. I understand. Always super nice to me. Never had a problem with him. But
I feel like the big jacked guys are always the super nice guys.
Yeah.
Every single time. Everyone I've met.
Very, very nice guy. So thanks to Cactus Pete for listening. I think he's in Arizona now. I don't think he's even living around here anymore. I got tomorrow we're going to do this officially for bumper music on this show. We'll have our own custom bumper music, but the Bay City Rollers had no idea who the Bay City Rollers are from the 920. So on the break, I saw it come through in the Nicolay La Talka text line. I was like, oh, all right, let's Google it. Let's see what this is. So I Googled it. Bye Bye Baby. Y'all know that if you go listen to it on Spotify or wherever. And Charlie's like, oh, let's see what this is. Cause he's young. He didn't know. It's bands from like the 70s. And he plays like, oh, I know this song. I was like, okay, see, we're going to educate Charlie on some of these old groups.
It was popular on TikTok for a little while. That's why I know
really?
It. There's a lot of old songs that will just make resurgences just randomly on TikTok. That song was popular on TikTok for a little while. Yeah.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah, people just doing fate story times over it and stuff. Yeah.
All right. Oh, very good. Learned something new there. Also, it is 4:00, so we go here.
It's time for your green and gold update on Wisconsin Sports Daily, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer.
All right, time now to do our green and gold update. And we're going to talk about Josh Jacobs. The reason we're talking about Josh Jacobs is because there's some rumblings going around that the Packers could potentially move on from Josh Jacobs and go in a different direction. Now, why would that be? Well, part of the reason is they're going to have to create some salary cap room here if they want to play in free agency or if they want to make trades and take on bigger contracts or whatever the case may be. Brian Gutekunst in his season-ending press conference talked about they're going to be able to do whatever they want in free agency. And we talked about it in the show. I laughed. I was like, well, you're going to have to do some work before you can do whatever you want in free agency, clearly. So Josh Jacobs in 2026, his age 28 season right now, is looking at a cap hit of $14.5 million. 14.5. The dead cap number, if they were to cut him, is only 6.25. So you're going to save just over $8 million by moving on from Josh Jacobs. In 2027, his age 29 season. Now, again, once you get to 30, you're done with Goody. But at age 29, his cap hit is going to be $16.6 million, dead cap of $3 million. Now you're saving $13 million against the cap if you move on from Josh Jacobs after the 26 season going into 27. So the question is simple. Would you move on from Josh Jacobs this offseason? What would you do? If you're Brian Gutekunst, let him play out his current contract? Do you do something else involving the contract? Do you cut bait and try to go find somebody else for the running back position? Nicolay Law Talk, a text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250 on the socials at WI Sports Radio. I will tell you my solution to this. I would extend them. That would be my solution. I extend them by a couple of years maybe, and I know that's like anti-religion for the Packers to have somebody getting paid past 30 at this point. But having said that, I would extend them out through the 28-29 season and move that money around and push it more and more to the back end. Maybe you give them more guaranteed money to make this work a little bit easier for him to swallow maybe less money, but more guaranteed money. And you keep Josh Jacobs going forward. Now, having said that, Did it look like to me that Josh Jacobs may have lost a half a step? Yes. Am I a scout? No. Am I a GM or a coach? No. Was I on the field playing against them? Absolutely freaking not. But as a fan watching, it didn't appear that he had that same explosion throughout the year. And he was battling and nicked up and injuries and whatever. And I get all of that. But then you have a guy like Kenneth Walker, who, according to reports today, is going to be out there in the free agent market. The Seattle Seahawks are essentially going to let him walk out there and do something else. Now, if this was 5 years ago, nobody would want to pay any running back anything because the running backs were a dying breed in the National Football League. Now, in the last several years, handful of years, the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, running the football, zone scheme, all of that stuff now has taken center stage in the National Football. Everybody wants to run the ball as much as possible. Ben Johnson, his version of what he does in Chicago, he wants to run the ball a lot. There's some talk that maybe we see fullbacks start coming back into play to increase the opportunities for you to run even more and give offenses another weapon of being able to throw to the fullback out of the backfield, fullback dives, whatever. So maybe you see more of that. So because of the way offenses are being designed and built right now, I feel like the number that you're going to have to pay probably isn't going to be the cheapest. But if I'm going to take a salary cap hit of $14 or $16 million a year, I'd much rather have it on a more explosive player in Walker than I would in Josh Jacobs. So if you're like, hey, we can afford a $14.5 million cap hit, or yeah, we can afford $16 million at running back, and in our grand scheme of things on our board where we designate how much money we want to spend on every position, we have it designated to spend that much money. And we think we can get Walker for maybe $16 million a year on the cap for 4 or 5 years, and we can make that work. Okay, if the answer to that is yes, all right, well, now you have to figure out, have a conversation with Walker's agent or whatever the case may be, or have some backdoor deals going on to see what type of number they're really looking for. And that's, trust me, much easier than it sounds. And if that number comes in the ballpark of where you want it to be, and if there's interest, then yeah, then you could move on from Josh Jacobs before March 1st or whatever and create that space to do something. I just think right now, if I'm the Packers, I extend Josh Jacobs because the leadership traits he brings to me are very, very valuable for a younger football team. And I think he is a good influence with those around him. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong, but I've not heard, oh man, that dude's a bad dude, man. He's one way in front of the camera. He's totally different off the camera. I haven't heard any of that. And trust me, if he was, I'd hear about it. I promise you, people would be texting me like, Sparky, don't buy into that crap you see. He ain't that guy. So from that perspective, I feel good with him being on the offensive side, with him being in that running back locker room and so forth. And the other thing is, let's say you miss on Walker and you let Jacobs go. Well, he ain't coming back, right? Then what? Now you're having to blow draft picks on running backs again because the last guy you drafted can't stay on the football field. So you can't even rely on him. If they had some young stud, that would make it even easier to make that decision. But right now, if the guys that you possibly could cut to restructure, unless you know pretty convincingly that you're going to get Walker from Seattle, I extend him, move the money, push the can down the road a couple of years, and bring back Josh Jacobs on a lesser deal.
I don't see a world, I guess, where Seattle lets Walker get out that door. Where do you think Seattle is in available cap space?
Well, they would have to franchise tag him if they can't come to an agreement.
Yeah, I know. They're going to come to an agreement because they're going to pay them. Where do you think Seattle is in the league in salary cap space this offseason?
Oh, they have a ton of it, I thought. So what are they, top 5?
6. They're 6.
Close.
They have $63 million in cap space.
I know they had a bunch of cap
They're
space.
going to pay him. there's no reason not to. He was the most valuable player, not just in the Super Bowl, in the entire playoffs for this team.
Right.
Throughout the season, when you're not paying the rest of your team and you still have a while to pay some of these guys, they just gave Charles Cross, their left tackle, a contract that they're keeping him pretty cheap. Abe Lucas is their right tackle that they're eventually going to need to pay here, but he's not going to cost that much money. They have Devin Witherspoon for another 2 years before they have to pay him. A lot of their young stars don't need to be paid right away. He's the most important guy.
And they just paid the quarterback.
He's the most important guy. You can't let that walk out of your building. And if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I guess I would be a little bit worried if you were to move on from Josh Jacobs and weren't able to find a replacement, because what we saw from Manuel Wilson this season, I think there were spurts where he showed he could be a solid kind of mid starter in the league, but also moments where he just didn't take advantage of opportunities that were given to him. We already know that the guy that shall not be named probably won't play a single game this season, may not even be on the team this season if they decide that it's just not worthwhile to keep a guy like that around who can't stay on the field. You're going to have to find other players to fill in that spot. I'd rather just keep Josh Jacobs around and find other players for those backup roles and figure that out first.
Nikolai Law Talk and text line asking you, what do you do with Josh Jacobs? You can save $8 million on the salary cap if you move on for him this offseason. 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250 from the 906. Restructure Josh Jacobs' contract. Need to keep a veteran presence in the locker room. I agree with you, 906. Let's go to CB, downtown Milwaukee. You're next on Wisconsin Sports Daily. What's going on, CB?
What's going on, my man? And you're absolutely right. Just restructure his deal, and we need to build that defense. So we need to go after Craig Newsome the second.
That's who ESPN predicted him going to the Packers today on their top 50 free agent predictions from Jacksonville.
Yeah, let's sign him and then go on from there. You can restructure. Russ Ball is a genius at doing that. So let's just build a defense.
Yeah, it's getting interesting. Thanks for the call. We talked to Ryan Wood in the first segment of the show. If you missed it, go back, wisportsradio.com, or if you download your favorite podcast at as well, just search Wisconsin Sports Daily or Best Packers coverage for all of your interviews that we do on the Packers here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. But the Greg Newsome thing is interesting because you're going to have whatever pool of money you're going to have that you're going to save from restructuring, extending, cutting, whatever, right? So whatever that pool of money is, then as you're Brian Gutekunst, you have to determine, okay, now where is that money going? Am I going to give Devontae White a new contract going into the last year of his deal? Do I want to try and bring back Romeo Doubs? Do I want to try to bring back Quay Walker? Or do I want to address this cornerback issue? Or do I want to address getting another big dude to play with Devontae White on that defensive line? Or do I want to go out and spend money on a proven Pro Bowl caliber center to try and fix this offensive line? Like, those are the options that the Packers front office is going to face here this offseason.
And it's a lot of big questions, but I also think it's pretty easy to tier those based on the talent that's potentially available. I think with the cornerback room, you need to find a mainstays type of player. You need to find somebody who's going to be there for the next 3 years at least. And I don't think you can guarantee that with any of the guys that are currently in that room, obviously. I think middle linebacker, you look at Quay Walker and whether you want to bring him back, or Romeo Doubs and whether you want to bring him back. I think both of those guys, you can find replacements at a middle linebacker 2, at a wide receiver 3 spot in the veteran free agent market or in the draft that can fill the role that those guys have, or even within your roster too. Again, we talked about Matthew Golden hopefully taking a next step. Maybe Dontavian Wicks can take a next step. We say that every year with him. He never does. Jaden Reed maybe can stay on the field and have a consistent role in this offense. You can figure out that Romeo Doubs. Tyron Hopper's on this team and played really well in that last game against the Bears, and was able to kind of fill in for a Quay Walker in that situation, or Jaron Cooper actually in that situation. I think this is something where you have to look at that cornerback room. You have to look at that defensive tackle spot and say, those were our 2 biggest weaknesses this season. How do we fix those? Sean Ryan, I think, has a little bit of a Rasheed Walker effect on a lot of people right now, where he filled in at that center spot and did good enough. And because he did good enough, a lot of people are in this mindset that he can just be that guy.
Ryan
and then
Wood, one of those guys.
And then in 2 years, when he's doing the same stuff that he was doing at the end of the season, people are frustrated with that. You just got to look back and say, listen, he was completely the same player through that whole thing. You had rose-colored glasses when he needed to fill in an emergency situation that made you view him maybe higher than he probably deserves in that spot. I think that's important to find a center. I think going all the way down through this, releasing a running back or even releasing Rashawn Gary at some points here is almost inconsequential compared to these other things that you got to figure out.
He's Charlie Usen. See Sparky Pfeiffer with you. Nicolay Law Talk and text line the 920. Based on what Sparky said, the best and always the best way to play football and win is to play good defense and run the ball. Yes, agreed. But what is the one area where this organization has struggled for 20 years? Drafting and putting together a consistently top defense. They draft defensive players usually early and often for as long as I can remember. And for as long as I can remember, they struggle on getting guys right. Yes, they'll get a BJ Raji right. That was an obvious pick. Trading up for Clay Matthews. That was a surprise trade up by Ted Thompson, but it was a brilliant trade up by Ted Thompson because they needed a pass rusher to go along with the defensive tackle. And if we're being honest right now, the Packers find themselves in the exact same situation they did that year, except they don't have a one. That Raji pick was a top of the first round pick. And then he moved back into the first round out of the second round to get Clay Matthews. Now you don't even have a first round pick, and you don't have a first round pick coming up next year either. So now to fill holes that you may have, you're probably not going to get the same type of impact as you would have if you weren't very good, let's say, and you were at the top of the first round. So that is a little bit different, but the needs are still the same. A big defensive tackle that's a run stuffer and another edge rusher to go against our guy Micah Parsons. Ryan Wood earlier when he joined us talked about for him, he'd rather just go with Ingabari because I brought up Bradley Chubb being released by the Dolphins, who had virtually the same numbers as Rashawn Gary. You could probably get him cheaper than Gary. And he brought up Ingabari. He's cheaper than both of them. He'll give you the same amount of production. Just let him play opposite of Micah Parsons. Maybe that's what the Packers will decide to do. But where they spend free agent money will be the question. Coming up next, Paul Wagner, LakeCountry.com's pitching coach, former Brewers pitcher, will join us. We'll talk a little Brewers, but I want to get the player perspective of what this is like now when you get into this last year of a CBA. How much do the smaller guys get listened to? How much of the higher end paid guys in the league really paying attention to? Versus when, the heads of these things like Tony Clark, who quit today, or Donald Fear, or whoever it is, who are they listening to? Who are they paying attention to? And we'll get into all of that straight ahead. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily. See Sparky Fiver with you. Speaking of heroes, Tommy Wirtz comes up at 5 o'clock with the Wisconsin Sports Wrap-Up. Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame edition from 5 until 6. You'll hear from Mason Crosby and former Packers president Mark Murphy, who will go into the Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame coming up this summer. That was announced today. He'll join the show at 5:45 with Tommy Wirtz and Mark Cass. So stay tuned for that, again, from 5 until 6. Joining us now on the guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law, one call, that's all. Paul Wagner, LakeCountry.com's pitching coach, former Milwaukee Brewers pitcher. How are we doing, Wags?
Brother, I'm a little disappointed. Mark Murphy's going in. How did I not get into that Hall of Fame? I mean, did they lose the ballots or they forget to put my name on there? Or, I don't understand that. I continue to get overpassed.
See, maybe you should have done roids like everybody else back in the day that you played with, and then you would have been in by now.
Or got somebody out.
Details, Wags, details. No need to harp on that. Okay, so I wanted to have you on to talk about the Brewers, obviously a little bit, but I really wanted the different angle of this. So we had Maury Brown on earlier, former senior contributors, covered baseball for 100 years, and he put out a post that Bruce Meyer is probably, they haven't announced it yet, is going to be the interim MLB PA director in place of Tony Clark, and then he would be the one negotiating the deal. Well, he is a right-hand man of Donald Fear, which is not good for anybody involved as far as not losing baseball games probably, and pretty much his thing is, over my dead body will there be a salary cap at the end of the day for Major League Baseball. Since you are the one that's played Major League Baseball and have gone through this, I have questions. My first question is, so you have your organization, you have a player rep. First question, how is the player rep determined?
Either appointed. So like I saw, and I know that the Brent Suter, our old Milwaukee Brewer, Brent Suter is a representative from that team. Usually when back in the day, back in the mid 90s, ours was just, I think it was just almost appointed by or passed on by. And it seemed to be everybody who, again, it was the better players. It was the good players, the Tom Glavins, these guys. You didn't find many back in the day, the Brent Suters of the world. And I'm not saying Brent Suter is not a good, obviously he's a great ball player. He's in the major leagues. He's a great person. We saw him here in Milwaukee. How they get appointed to that position, I don't know. I believe Fairbanks is down in Tampa. There's a lot of different individuals from all different areas. Marcus Semien, I believe, is representing the New York Mets now. So Marcus Semien comes over. He just signs with the New York Mets this offseason, and right there he is on the subcommittee as well. So again, I don't know if it's by team, if it's appointed by players in general. Maybe a vote has taken place at spring training for this, but how they become appointed, I don't know. Although I do know when Tony Clark, I believe, came on 10 years ago and all of this came down, Bruce Meyer does most of it, regardless of how you think about him. A lot of people had different views, even as players. We had different views of Tony Clark. But Bruce Meyer has always been basically the quote unquote or the so-called negotiator of all times. Bruce Meyer is the one who communicates with agents, with organizations, with GMs. I think he was more of the hands-on, and nothing to take away from Tony Clark and what he did or what he didn't do. I think that was more Bruce Meyer was behind the scenes. So when representatives in the subcommittee say that no loss with Tony Clark, yes, there is a slight loss and diminishing because of the fact of the negotiations for this upcoming CBA that need to take place this summer with the deadline after the World Series. I don't believe the union is in as bad of shape, if that makes sense to you. But where these are appointed and how they come about, I do not know.
This is the thing. So December 1st, when this thing ends, and then there's probably going to be a lockout or whatever is going to happen here at the end of the day. My thing is, Donald Fear cost us a World Series and everything else. And when that all was said and done, yes, you got revenue sharing. Bud didn't hold out for drug testing and steroid testing because they would have lost even more games because Fear didn't want to have that either. So that took forever. And I have nothing positive to say about how that whole experience went from a fan standpoint at all. So now I've got a guy that was his right-hand man in the NHL and is a part of it now. And to me, it's just like, holy cow. Like if The fans go through another deal where they lose half a season or a full season, and there is no cap at the end of this rainbow, and you do all of that and you don't get it any closer. I just think it's going to do irreparable harm to baseball fans all over the country if they lose games. Now, if they get this figured out and settled and there's no games lost and there is no cap, but there's something for fans to, hold on to of, okay, well, this makes us feel a little bit better. It doesn't fix it, but we got somewhere. Then I think fans will be okay. But if there's games lost and there's no cap, good luck.
Yeah, I don't believe. I know just from some words that I've heard, some rumblings or whispers. I don't believe it's going to be deja vu with Bruce. I don't believe it's going to be Groundhog Day and go down that same path. He has to make an adjustment. There's too much. There's too much involved. And and as I looked at it, and as I listened to everybody, as it's been building up before you even called me, I was looking at it and thinking about it, and I really loved how, and I know I remember back when I was with you all the time, and remember when the NBA had that sort of thing where if you didn't spend a certain amount, and I'm not saying baseball was going down this path, but I remember it was the San Antonio Spurs, and remember you had to spend, let's just use a ballpark number of $100 million. The lowest you could go was 15%, so you could spend $85 million. Well, remember that year, the San Antonio Spurs, I believe, decided to do this. They said, you know what? We're not even going to spend that $85 million. So let's just use for simple numbers. They spent $70 million, $50 million under that low threshold. And at the end of the year, to protect the players, I believe, if not correct, that the San Antonio Spurs then cut, let's just say for simple numbers, for the 15 guys on the roster, if they were carrying 14 or 15 guys, whichever they were doing, each guy got $1 million, which that protected the organization from going out and giving a max contract to X, Y, and Z, the Duncans, the Admiral Robinson. This was before Wemby came there. So I know there's ways to do it, and I hope baseball was creative on both sides, ownership side and player side, because we can't. You are right. We can't go down that. So many people are barking for a salary cap. So many people are barking for a ceiling and a floor, whatever it may be. Something has to come about. And if you can't agree on that, I think the players would shift to team control. And this is going to upset a lot of small market teams, the Milwaukee Brewers for one. Control is big. And you see how the Milwaukee Brewers, how David Stern did it before he left, and now Matt Arnold does it. Team control is so important. The Players Union looks at it as I bust my ass in spring training in the minor leagues for X amount of years. Then I have 3 years of team control. Then I have 3 years of arbitration. And then my 7th year, possibly more than that in this organization, I am finally a free agent. The players don't, it's kind of tough when the average major league career lasts 3.1 years. 3.1 years, and you can't be a free agent until 7.
It's crazy to me that Major League Baseball and the Packers and the NFL have the same year total for an average player. That's crazy.
And don't quote me on that, but it's pretty dang close. It's pretty dang close. So again, there's things to use and there's things to work on, and I hope both sides do that.
Tom with Paul Wagner, LakeCountry.com's pitching coach, former Brewers pitcher, as he joins us here on the guest hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. So you aren't top end. You're not making high end money. You're not making Ohtani money. You're not making any of that money. You are Caleb Durbin, or you are some of these other guys, Jacob Mizorowski, and some of these guys. They don't really have say at all, do they? At the end of the day, like this thing can go on forever, and ain't nobody listening to them. Like how does the players union eventually, I guess, have to fold? Who do they eventually listen to go, okay, we have to fold and give in here because guys are running out of money and they want to come back, even though this may not be the best for the long-term interest. There's too many of them mad at us now. Like, at what point would they then have to give in?
That point will come up because, like you said, the guys that are making $850,000 minimum. Don't get me wrong. That's a heck of a lot of money.
Sure
that's
is.
A heck of a lot of money. But if you're not getting paid this year, and let's just say you take half of it out in taxes. Let's just say whatever your bills are, they rack up. But this CBA deadline didn't just creep up overnight. So what they did in the past, at least when I played, is the union would take out money. So you get we get monies for baseball cards, for jersey sales. You get all of this stuff. And you get a licensing check every spring training. So when the front office, the Tony Clarks, the Bruce Myers, the Players Association comes around and visits every single spring training site, they go everything. They go over this, that. They go over FBI talks. Be careful of this. This is the new scam. Be careful about this. They go over everything to protect all veterans and rookie players. And then at the end of this conversation, which lasts about 3 hours or 2 hours, and everybody has spoken, then they hand out licensing checks. The union has been garnishing portions of those licensing checks since the start of the last CBA, or when they figured that this is going to be a tough one. So there's a little bit of money. So to give you a deadline, when this little bit of money, let's just say 25 grand a month or 20 grand a month, when that stuff wears out, or 30 grand a month wears out, then you're going to start hearing the younger players start barking, and then they're going to say, I just want to play. And that's where they have to be understanding of a young player trying to establish himself in the game, or those that are trying to better it but got the money.
I got another one for you. How does it work for the minor leagues? What if, because they don't have their own union as far as I know down there. So right. What is it this now mean for minor league baseball? Because they are subsidiaries of the major league clubs and they already don't make money.
No, they will play. They will play. My understanding is they will play. Appleton will play. Biloxi will play.
So
Nashville will play.
Couldn't the Brewers then essentially just designate for assignment all these dudes to be in AAA or whatever to make sure they still play, or are they stuck?
If they're not on the 40-man roster, and then obviously there's 40-man roster protection rights. Yep. So like I believe Jet Williams, the trade for Freddie.
He's not on the 40-man.
So Jet will come into spring training and he will play. If he does not get to the big leagues, or let's just say we get to the second half, or let's just say we get into August, September, I don't believe if they still want the development to continue for a player like that, they would not call him up. If he's on the 40-man roster, he can't participate. If he does, he crosses the line and you got a whole different can of worms, and you don't even want to address that. So they will protect their players. Major league coaching staffs have to stay in place, so they will be there. So let's just say Pat Murphy, if they do go on strike or there is a lockout, Pat Murphy will roam. He'll probably be a rover. He will be managing in Appleton. He will go down to Biloxi. He'll be in Nashville. But the guys that are on the 40-man roster cannot show up to spring training. They cannot show up to the stadium. They cannot work out at the complex. They are all on their own. So the Brewers, and the way their philosophy works, a lot of their players don't look for that. Don't look for that super. Don't look for Made. Don't look for Cooper Pratt. Don't look for these guys to get called up if it's late in the season, because once they go on the 40-man, they're going to lose developmental time if the strike and lockout takes place in 27.
That's something I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, Made, he's going to be here in September, get a cup of coffee, get ready. But from what you're just saying now it makes all the sense in the world to make sure he doesn't come up, to make sure he doesn't lose developmental time next year. And that means that the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers are going to have a lot of fans if there's no Major League Baseball, because people are going to be craving it, or people are going to be coming to watching your team play, or whoever it may be coming up in the offseason. I got to get to a break here, but one last thought here. Your thoughts quickly, Wags, on the offseason movement for the Brewers, getting rid of Durbin, getting rid of Peralta, and the hauls they got.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think with the 27, let's just go back to this really fast. I know you don't have much time. The 27 season is in jeopardy. It's absolutely in jeopardy. I just wish for the amount of money we were paying Freddie. I know you want to get as much talent as you can, but if you could run the same exact team out that you ran out last year with 97 wins, and if Brandon Woodruff is healthy, if he is healthy, and you got Freddie, who won 17 games last year and went 17-6 with a 2.7 and was fifth in voting. If you could run those guys out for $8 million, I would have loved to see it. The Caleb Durbin move, I get it. You buy low, you sell high. I think Caleb Durbin, as much as we all love him, we saw him play in Fond du Lac. He played for the Dock Spiders a couple years. He played for Sharbs. I know about him and him. I think it was a great time to move him. Two left-handed pitchers who got upside. The Freddie Peralta with Jet, man, I don't know. I just wish we could have ran this team one more time especially knowing that 27 season was in jeopardy.
There is Paul Wagner, LakeCountry.com's pitching coach. Great entertainment value for your dollar for sure coming up this summer. And, of course, former Milwaukee Brewers pitcher. Wags, anything else you want to promote on the way out?
No, I tell you what, the LakeCountry.com season is starting. We're going to have guys coming in. I believe we start May 15th. We have a couple exhibition games against the hated Milwaukee Milkmen down at Franklin Park, and then they come up by us. So if you can't catch a regular season game because the summer's too jam-packed, come down to see an exhibition game against the Milkmen and the Dockhounds. And again, check out this one too. We have a podcast. We had it again. It's a hunting and an outdoors one. Flipping sticks and throwing lead. Check it out.
Flipping sticks and throwing lead. Oh, my God. Paul Wagner, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care. There he is, Paul Wagner. We'll have him on throughout the Brewer season as well. Coming up, we'll get to Charlie's Sounds of the Day and things Sparky missed. Don't forget, Potawatomi Sportsbook. That's where you're all going to be watching all your basketball games, baseball games, the thrill of witnessing a walk-off grand slam, game-winning touchdown, a buzzer-beating three. You know the feeling. There's only one place to experience that raw exhilaration, the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Catch all the action in a supreme space with dozens of sports betting kiosks. Right there off the parking garage, they have kiosks. Cool drinks, luxury seating, great food, fiery atmosphere, and a monster video wall. 2,000 square feet, over 30 sporting events at one time they can show up only at the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reserve your seat ahead of time now. You're going to want to reserve your seat ahead of time once we get to basketball coming up next month. All you have to do is go to Potawatomi.com. Nominal fee, but it goes towards your food and beverage, and you're going to spend that money anyhow. Check them out. Potawatomi.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino. Welcome in. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily. Live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Coming up here, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. It's going to be Wisconsin Sports Wrap-Up, a special edition tonight. Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame in the spotlight tonight. Mark Cass and Tommy Wirtz will be hosting the show. You'll hear from Mason Crosby. And former Packers president Mark Murphy joins the show at 5:45. As today, the Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame announced that he will be one of the members into the next Hall of Fame class coming up later this summer. So stay tuned tonight between 5 and 6 for that. I'm sure it will be very, very good. Always fun to listen to Mark Murphy and what he has to say.
What sound clips will Chicago Charlie pick today for Sparky? Will Sparky become enraged? Will laughter ensue? It's time for Charlie's Sound of the Day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, Charlie, what you got, buddy?
All right. So first up, we didn't get to really talk about Bucks at all today. So I want to get some Bucks conversation in here for you, Sparky.
Thanks.
This
better
is
be positive. Then.
It is positive for the
Okay.
first time in a while. Danny Green and Iman Shumpert are starting to try to change the Giannis narrative on ESPN. This is NBA Today, where those two guys were on talking about potential moves that Bucks could make.
He's very calculated in what he's saying. He knows what he's saying, but it, like Bobby said, Mr. Marks, it's day to day, week to week, month to month with him in Milwaukee, and they don't want to trade him. I wouldn't want to trade him either. So
he's the franchise. He's the business.
If you want to keep him, you got to go out in the market and find somebody that can keep him there. If I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm monitoring what the Clippers are doing with the Kawhi situation.
Oh, stop.
If you can get a player like Kawhi or something similar to that, that can keep Giannis home and then also build around that group to make it a contention in the East.
I can't agree with him more. If you can keep Giannis,
wrong.
you keep Giannis.
No, you're both wrong. You mean well. You do. I understand.
I thought you were going to be happy that they're trying to get
No.
you some good players here, Sparky.
No. Absolutely freaking not. No. Miles get Anthony Davis, another injury-prone cat. I don't want to go down that road. Man, this dude gets hurt enough, Giannis. I don't need another guy that gets hurt just as much as he does, actually more than he does, in Kawhi Leonard. Yes, when Kawhi Leonard is healthy, see the All-Star games, yes.
He's having one of the best seasons of his career right now.
Absolutely. Will he be healthy in the playoffs? We'll see. But my point is, I have no interest in doing that. No, if it's me, I take Giannis. If this Jen character works out, I can bring him back. Now I got a 3 and I got a 4. You got a multitude of guards to pick from what you want to do. You have to figure out the Miles Turner situation and then hope that you can turn this pick in the first round into something special as well. Then you still will have multiple first round picks if you do want to add somebody else. But I would say, let's just wait and see what the lottery balls look like. But again, what position do you want to add it at? Because if it's me, if I'm saying, where do I need help? I want a legitimate shooting guard, 6'5", 6'6", that can score. If Jang is my future 3, I'm good there. Yasma 4, I'm good there. I don't like Miles Turner at the 5, but in order to fix that, you got to move him first and then deal with the salary cap and all that other stuff. So the easier way to solve this is draft a shooting guard in the draft that's a knockdown shooter, that's long, that can defend. And then whoever your point guard is, then he's 6'6", 6'9" with Jang, 7 foot for Giannis, 7 foot for Miles Turner. You're long. You can get deflections in the passing lane. You're a lot younger around Giannis, which is what he wants. He doesn't want a bunch of old guys, right? And then you can develop going forward. That's my thing. Now, if you go out and you sign Kawhi Leonard or whatever the case may be, then you're saying, okay, Jang's not the guy and we're going to go. And maybe that's where we'll be, right? Maybe the 2 games are a flash in the pan. Maybe that's not real. Maybe that's Cinderella type stuff. We'll see. But if he plays like this the rest of the year, that's my 3 going forward. I'm not even worrying about going against somebody else. Go ahead.
We're going to head on over to Sports Center now, where Seth Greenberg and Kevin Nagandi were discussing the Jerome Tang situation, which we've been following over the past couple episodes of Wisconsin Sports Daily. Tang is now suing Kansas State for firing him without just cause. This is Seth Greenberg's take on the whole situation.
The university said his behavior was embarrassing. To me, the university's behavior is embarrassing. The athletic director's behavior is embarrassing because think about what he just said. He said They're going to hold his team to a standard. Their effort and their execution was unacceptable. And look, he's responsible for the players he brought into the program, right? And you know what? He made mistakes. But that has nothing to do with why he's getting fired. He's getting fired because he did not win enough games. It has nothing to do with that press conference. It has nothing to do with what he said. Look, he said there's a standard at this university. There's an acceptable and unacceptable behavior in terms of our effort, our attitude, the type of teammates we are, how we play, how we compete, how we represent this university. Not just the university, not just the basketball program, all right, but the community and the alumni. So, quite honestly, don't you want your players? These guys are professionals.
Yes.
All right. The players on this team at Kansas State, they're getting paid probably between $500,000 and $1 million+ a year.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So if they're getting paid like that, then you know what? They expect to be treated like professionals. And you know what? Jerome Tang, he made mistakes. He made mistakes in his roster construction. He made mistakes in terms of how maybe he handled this team. But one thing he didn't do, he didn't deserve to be fired with cause.
Yeah.
He's getting fired because he did not win enough games.
And keep in mind, he's 71-57 in his 4 seasons at Kansas State. It's the last couple of years, and obviously, where you're spending the money. But by the way, the idea that this is cause, it's ridiculous. I'm with you, Seth.
Okay. I don't even know where to begin. First of all, I don't know the financial situation with those guys. But if you're telling me the last player on that bench at Kansas State is making $500,000, that should be its own documentary and story.
Insane.
If everybody, I mean, if that's what college basketball is, if the last guy on Marquette's bench is making $500,000, if the last guy on Wisconsin's bench is making $500,000, if that's true, where we're at with college basketball, we could stop all the college football talk now. Let's instead focus on college basketball and all the money these kids are playing. I'm not at the point of saying they're professionals. Yeah, sure. Right, these first-round picks in the NBA draft in June, yeah, they're all getting paid a lot of money. I'm not saying that they're not. But I don't buy that all of them are making that type of money. And I also, I guess, will disagree with his take on it wasn't embarrassing and so forth. To me, I would have moved on. I would have been done with him. Seth Greenberg is an old school dude. We used to have Seth on years ago on a sport show I used to produce here in Milwaukee. I like Seth, always got along with Seth. We disagree, but Tang is definitely more old school as how he's gone about things, for sure. All right.
Last up here, we're going to go to another old school guy. Buck Showalter was on Foul Territory, and he was discussing young players playing baseball year-round.
You know, it's funny. I'm a big bio guy. When I look at pitchers, you know, young pitchers that we signed or did, whatever, that are in camp, I love when a guy has played 3 sports or 2 sports, and he hasn't pitched or played year-round. You know, the arm and the shoulder and the elbow, the time off is precious. I told guys, get away from it. Don't pick up a baseball until whatever. And pitching coaches, you know, the time off is so precious. But guys that played baseball only year-round, it was a big red flag because we knew they were going to have some physical issues along the line. And I remember one guy said, hey, what positions you play when you didn't pitch? He goes, well, I didn't play another position. I go, wait a minute, you didn't hit or play when you didn't pitch in high school? Well, no. Really? That guy lasted about 2 weeks because he couldn't cover first base for one thing.
Okay, it's funny. I do know some travel teams that do the same thing. Or if you're pitching, you're not hitting at all, and you're not playing once you get to high school. Definitely travel organizations that do that. I also disagree with that. I also think that's crazy. All right, time to think Sparky Miss, brought to you by the Milwaukee Admirals. Bracketology out on ESPN. Joe Lenardi with his bracketology. The Wisconsin Badgers right now seated as a 7 seed in Oklahoma City against number 10 Texas A&M. And then if they win that game, they would get Kelvin Sampson and Houston, who lost to Iowa State last night. That was a hell of a game last night. Watch that one. So again, a 7 seed. I think they could get as high as a 5 seed before this is over.
That's kind of a brutal first 2 games as a 7 seed, though. Texas A&M, I don't want even as a 10 seed, and then Houston. Are you kidding me? Come on.
5-12 isn't ideal, but I think that's where I think they end up at the end of the day. Coming up next, Wisconsin Sports Wrap-Up featuring the Wisconsin Sports Athletic Hall of Fame. Mason Crosby, former Packers president, Mark Murphy. Coming up next with Tommy Wirtz. That'll do it for Wisconsin Sports Daily, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Have a good night, Wisconsin. Toodles.